distributed version.
Thanks, hi Dan, great presentation. And I have a question. There's this guy called Pullhead & Company. He invented Varnish, and he's also in the HTTP2 workgroup.
Yes.
And he's strongly opposed to HTTPS in Varnish, and his reason is that some dictators or some regimes don't allow encrypted web. So his idea is that if you enforce HTTPS, you will cut people off from the internet. Would you describe that as being bullshit, or does he have a point?
No, I don't think it's bullshit. I think Paul Honeycomb is a super smart guy, and I've been privileged to be in the same room with him on a couple of occasions. I think he's got a point, and I think that's one of the challenges that I alluded to earlier. I mean, there are other challenges as well. There was a great Medium post recently about how the idea of moving to HTTPS doesn't take into account a lot of things like running a web server on an IP address, for instance, is not possible over HTTPS. I was thinking about it the other day, and I have a printer at home that you configure by visiting an HTTP server, which it advertises on the local network. I'm pretty sure that if we deprecated HTTP and if browsers simply say no, we will only make connections to HTTPS websites and things like that, things like we might be disenfranchising the very marginalized groups that we're trying to protect. So I think that is a really important debate, and I don't have an answer for it. I'm hoping that one answer is that those oppressive regimes will stop trying to block HTTPS and will move towards a freer web. And maybe if all of these services, such as GitHub and all of that are becoming essential to modern life, especially modern life in technology as a developer, are HTTPS only, then there will be increased pressure, and those ideas will go away. But I think this is an important debate to have, and it's why we can't do this overnight. It's got to be incremental. So yeah, it's a really good question. Thanks.
Thank you, Daniel. We'll get another chance to talk to Daniel at the panel session. We'll be one of the speakers for Do Smart Web. And now, Mihai Coros, who is a web developer at Core System, will show us a hands-on experience on how to configure and use GulpJS to construct a build system. Hello, Mihai. I would like to give you some inside information about Mihai. He's a .NET developer. He specialized in ASP.NET, MVC, and HTML5, and also JavaScript. And he has experience in fields such as online recruiting, healthcare, tourism, and field service management. Maybe if you have any questions before we start about GulpJS.
Can everybody hear me? I guess yes. Okay, let's start because I think we're a bit behind schedule. My name is Mihai Coros. I work for a company called Core System. It's a Swiss company based here. It has an office here in Cluj. We do a cloud solution for mobile field service. And today I'm going to talk to you about how we built a continuous integration environment in our one of our web applications, which we write using Angular. I held this presentation about 2 weeks ago at the local JavaScript group, so if you've been there, you will see that it's the same. Good. I don't have that many slides. I have like 7 slides, and I will focus mostly on the demo. We'll write some steps in order to see how we configure Gulp to construct our build system. But before that, what is a build system and what do we use it for? So, if you were to picture in your head how a build system looks, I'm sure you all have a picture in mind right now. Maybe it looks something like that. But maybe we don't want to end up in a big pile of stuff which is all connected together, and then we can't make anything out of it. Mostly we end up in doing something like this, in which we have a file system, we take some files from there, we modify them, we might modify them some more. So what we do is that we have like a pipeline in which we modify what we need to obtain something which is useful. Okay, now why would we need a build system in JavaScript? Mostly it's to automate the stuff which we do manually before we deploy our website, or maybe also during development, testing, and so on. And I have here a few cases, which to compress images, maybe remove some debugger statements which we use during debugging, to minify our CSS and JavaScript code, link the files to have them referenced in our HTML, and eventually to deploy to a server and have a continuous integration. Good. Now, getting to Gulp, I'm pretty sure that if you've heard of Gulp, you've also heard of Grunt. And Gulp at some point was the new kid on the block. And if you go online and search for any of those, most of the time you will find them something like that. And I won't go into the details in comparing these two because there are a lot of references and places where this is done. But I will point out the main differences. The main difference, which is that Gulp focuses on code, while Grunt focuses on configuration. Okay, let's go straight to the demo, in which I have 7 steps. Well, we will be doing these. To compile less to CSS, then we want to minify that CSS, then we want to link those CSS files into our HTML, minify our JavaScript files if we want to deploy them onto a server, link them to the index HTML, and then there is another step to see how we can transpile ECMA 6 JavaScript ECMA 5, and eventually to run our unit tests. Okay, so I'll switch over to code part. And I'll try to zoom in here, so is that okay? Thank you for everybody? Okay. For this demo, I have a really simple application which does pretty much nothing. I only have a static index HTML page which displays the weather condition here in Cluj. It's always sunny. And if I go to our HTML file, it's really simple. I have I use Angular, I have a controller, and a small table. So our first Gulp task, I use it only to display that something was started. So to display that our Gulp task works. So if I go now and I run this, Gulp, you see here that ran successfully. Okay, let's go to our first useful step, which is to convert our less to CSS. So if we look here, we have a less file, nothing really fancy, and I will delete my CSS file from here. And if you take a look in the Gulp file, now we have a task here, which uses a Gulp plugin, which converts our less to the CSS. So what we do, we just take the less file, and we run it through the less converter, and then we output it to our CSS folder. So if we run Gulp now, we'll see that the CSS file will be generated here. And of course the app will do the same. So this looks okay. So then we can go to our next step, which is to minify this CSS. In order to do that, I added a parameter to our Gulp task to see whether we are in a production environment or not. And for that, I used another plugin for Gulp. And I take this production parameter from the command line. And if we are in production, then we take all the CSS files from the CSS folder and all the folders underneath. We concatenate them, we minify it, and then we output them in our output CSS folder. So if we do that, and we have to make sure we add the production argument, then we should have a minified CSS file, which I put it in our build folder over here. And if we take a look, you see here we have all the CSS, also the custom one, also the one which was which came with the third-party CSS, all minimized. What we need to do next is to add this CSS file, a reference to it in our index HTML, and I have to do it manually now. But the next step is to do that automatically, depending on whether we are on production or on development. So let's go to the next step. And if we take a look in our, let's first take a look at this. I have here some markers which will be used by another Gulp plugin, and this is where the CSS links will be placed. So if we take a look at the new task which I have here in Gulp, which is called link CSS, I have those two markers. This is the file that I will work on, and I check if we are in production. Then I will put the minified file. If not, I will put all the other CSS files. So let's take a look at how this works. And now if we check the HTML, we will have here all the CSS files. But if I run Gulp with the production argument, then I should have here only one file. And this should something, yeah. Oops. Okay, let's go further. And the next thing we want to do is to minify also our JavaScript files if we want to deploy them onto server when we are in production. And this works very similarly as in the case of minifying CSS. So we have a minification task, and we only use this if we are in production. And we have another Gulp plugin which does the minification. This is done after we concatenate all the sources from all the JavaScript files, and we output them in an output folder. It's important here to place first our module, AngularJS module files first, and after that all the other files. So if we run this, we should see here in the build another folder where we have all the scripts minified. And of course we have to include it in the HTML file, but I have another task for doing that, which is the next one. And of course this looks and behaves similarly to including the CSS files, but here I have a different tag, and I have modified a bit in fact I added a new task for linking these scripts, which looks very similarly to the one with the CSS one. So if I run now Gulp without a production argument, I should end up here in the index.html with all the scripts. And this is useful when I work on development, so I can debug all my scripts. And if I run it with the production argument, then I should get there only the unified argument. Cool. 2 steps remaining, and the next one is to see how we can transpile the ECMAScript, some ECMAScript code to 6 to ECMAScript 5. And for that, I have here a class. And this is from ECMAScript 6, and I use that in my Angular controller to instantiate it and place some data in it, which we will define on the HTML. So in order to do the transpilation, I use transversal, and there is a plugin for Gulp for using that, and I modified the task for the minification of the app script. And what I do now is, after I take all my scripts from my JS files, I will run them through the transversal plugin, and that will be output to my output folder. And if I'm in production, I will also minify them. So if I run Gulp now, I will have here all the JavaScript files, but now they have been transpiled. So if we take a look at how this class, which I've written in ECMAScript 6, looks, I see here that there is a dependency on transfer runtimes, which does all the magic, let's say. And this should work. That looks fine. Yep. Okay, and the last step is to run some unit tests, because we want that also in our continuous integration environment. So let's check out that one. And I'm using Karma to run my unit tests. And I have a very simple test over here, which only checks if I have something on my weather controller. So I instantiate scope, and on that scope I should expect to have some data set in my controller. If you take a look here, that's what we do. So I have configured Karma to run this test. So if I run Karma by hand to run this test, I will do something like this. And this should start up Chrome and run a test. It runs continuously so that I can have feedback while I'm developing, but I want this to be run by Gulp when I'm deploying, when I'm committing, or whatever I want it in the continuous integration. So I have another task for that in Gulp, which is to run unit test. And this does nothing else but actually what I did manually. So It starts the karma with the config file I specified in the command line. The only difference is that I want this to run just once. So if I run Gulp now, it doesn't matter if it's production or not because I want the unit test to run all the time. That is successful. Okay, let's go back to a few slides which I have with me. And in our application, we use .NET as a backend, and the Bamboo as a continuous integration server. So the way we integrated all this is that we check out first all the code, then we build our backend solution. After that, we run our backend tests, then we run Gulp as we configured it. Then if we have some coverage on the JavaScript part, maybe with Istanbul, we can parse those results and eventually we deploy them. And the Gulp task is really simple. We just run it from the command line with the production argument as I did in the demo. That's it. You can find the code on GitHub, and for sure you can find a lot of more information about JS and other locations.
Thank you, Mihai. Application you provided, and I'm sure the audience has some questions for you. So, would like to find out some insights about GulpJS and how Mihai implemented it. I have one question about GulpJS, and is there a feature that you wished GulpJS provided and you already found it? Or are you still wishing that a feature might show up and help you in your work?
There are a lot of plugins already written which you can use. You can also write your own plugins. There is this thing that Gulp runs only asynchronously. So the thing is that if you want to do something synchronously, then you have to do some workarounds. So that's something I think which could be improved.
Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Yes.
Isn't it enough if you put for a task, you include another task as a dependency? Doesn't that make it run synchronously?
Between the pipes, it runs synchronously, but if you have like different instances of Gulp, you have to somehow manage them.
In which case, let's say you would use different instances?
If you work on some, let's say, if you want to generate some files from one part, and then with another instance of Gulp, you're waiting for those files to be generated and do something with them eventually, but not in the same pipeline.
Yeah, thank you.
Mihai will also be attending the panel later today, so he will be answering more of your questions. But now I would like to invite Radu Popescu, a front-end developer at QA, a front-end developer in QA at Small Footprint. He's going to show us how to improve the website, how to improve the websites and push them higher into the SCRP-RS rankings in his Tech CEO.
Right? And there's a lot of human stuff. There's a lot of time and a lot of energy which is wasted. Nightwatch can do that, and Selenium can do that too, and their cloud testing servers or services can do that. But the interesting point is that now we JavaScript developers can do that too. And I've seen guys coding in every single language: .NET, Java, PHP, JavaScript, and I never personally have seen such an efficiency in coding, right? So efficiency with JavaScript for me was really an epiphany, right? Because I'm a manager, and you will be probably managers very soon. Either your own managers because you're going to have your startup, or your managers in the company, or you're going to be team leads. In any case, you're going to progress, and you're going to have to make some decisions about how you manage your projects. And in your case, you might have to make decisions about the technology that you choose and how you use it. So this is the low level, like JavaScript is fine, we talked about that. But now, let's go back to the beginning of the presentation and also have a conclusion, which is that efficiency is something that is much subtle, right? Because, as I said, I'm talking with him, and we're talking JavaScript. We're both developers. We exchanged information that was efficient. He checked his function, I double-checked, it's fine, we pushed. We're all happy. But there is some collateral benefits from that discussion. It's his motivation that has raised up, right? It is his knowledge that has raised up. It is a transferable knowledge from backend to QA to frontend. That means you have a QA which is sick. Happens. The guy is sick. But it's not a problem. Because you can just open the code and you just get it. Everybody gets it. The PM comes in your code and he changes the password because he observes that that didn't work. So when you see that this is the transferable knowledge capacity, then you understand that, and you compare that with what you know from developing until today, you just understand that this is a new era. Right? It is a new era in terms of efficiency of coding. And when I'm saying coding, I should be efficiency in developing, because developing is not only coders. It's the UX, the PM, the client. And as Dan mentioned this morning, and probably you were here, in a couple of years, all our kids, they're going to just code like we will never do. Like they're going to be 10, and they would be going in Go and JavaScript and Java. They will know like these 5, 6 languages because it's cool, it's fun, we do it at school. It's kind of normal, right? For us, it's something hard, but for them, it's going to be natural. So we're kind of trying to do something that's going to naturally happen in the future. Everybody's going to speak code, right? But today, it's not the case. We as professionals don't do that right now. So I think it's a fundamental shift, right? So if you mix that with competitivity, then if you deliver quickly, good quality, scalable, everything that JavaScript does and will do better and better, you're a winner, right? There's nothing that will stop you or prevent you from succeeding. So this is, I think, a really specific moment in time, and every person that is going to take this wave will arrive very far. It's no doubt about that. So when I will finish this talk with this thought, if you know, there's the marketing that Java does about Java, and I think it's like Java works on 50 billion devices today. I mean, right? Something like that. A huge number, 50 billion devices. Okay. My guess, my vision is that with the Internet of Things, where Node.js is going to play a fantastically important role, we're going to be saying in 5 years, Node.js is running on 5,000 billion devices. 5,000, just give a number. But a huge amount of devices. JavaScript is ready for this new wave of technology, and it is really the language of the moment in terms of efficiency and, I would say, capacity to reach almost in every domain. So yeah, probably Google is not going to use Node.js tomorrow for their search engines. Yeah, but there's only one Google. And there's going to be hundreds of thousands of other projects that you're going to start today, for which we'll be able to make a choice. So I think that's about it. So if there's questions, I'm really happy to answer. And
thank you
other
both for your presentation. I think most of us learned something new today. I think you already have a question.
Hey.
Hi.
My question is, does Nightwatch has some support for requirements like cucumber or fitness?
Sincerely, I don't know. But what I know, it has support for a lot of stuff. And it is 0 point something. So if it doesn't have it today, it probably will have it in 6 months.
What do you have in the fixtures?
In the fixture, it's a JSON that has the data that should start a test. I will speak with Robert. We're going to publish the code. If you guys are interested to look at the stuff and run it yourselves, it's pure JSON, nothing special.
Okay, thanks.
Right?
If we talked about efficiency in JavaScript, I have a question. How do you resolve all those architectural things that were imposed in objective-oriented programming, like, I don't know, all kinds of patterns, and how will those be solved and do in JavaScript?
The answer is, I don't know. The question that I am saying is, does it really matter? It probably matters for some projects and probably doesn't matter for most of the projects. JavaScript is not going to solve everything, obviously. I'm not saying that, understand me correctly. But it's going to solve most of the problems that you might, or most of the challenges that you're going to receive. And because of the effect of having server-side, front-side, and QA, the community and the interest for this language is going to explode. And if it is exploding, that means the language is going to progress quicker than it did before, right? So it's a very good question. I don't have the answer because I'm not a specialist really. Probably other guys in the room can respond to this. I'm more looking at this topic from a management perspective and like from a vision perspective. There are a lot of details technically that will be solved by the guys who can.
Do you think JavaScript will be the next big enterprise thing, like replace Java and .NET? And if so, when?
I don't know. That's something that I would not say. And I have somebody who to me, and we had discussions about it here. It's not the point, I think, right? There's something that I can tell you, and that you already know, which is that what is going to increase the most in the next years? Is the number of big applications, or is it the number of applications? Number of applications, right? Obviously, the Internet of Things is confirming that at every single level. That means there's going to be a huge place, proportionally, for small, medium applications, for which JavaScript is going to be super good. What I know is that big applications are giving up parts of their stuff and dedicate them to JavaScript, especially for microservice architecture, which is coming, and which is very strong. But also on a hardware level, Robert, which is also here, I'm mentioning him because he's really the guy who inspired me most of this talk. He sent me an article, and this is an amazing stuff. Like there's a shoebox. I don't know if you have seen that. And the shoebox is full with like little computers, like the kind of USB key stuff that not Raspberry is really big today, but the kind of the new generation, the stuff which is like 1 centimeter. And the project is done by a cloud provider. And the guys thought about, okay, let's move our cloud into a shoebox. So they put the stuff, they connected all the servers together, they put Node.js in there, and they have a fantastic capacity of computing and of resilience. And it's super cheap. And it works super well. So it is this disruption that comes, which is very visible because the context is changing, right? The context is we're going to have a lot of very small computer items that are computing capable. And somebody has to borrow them. So yes, it's going to be low-level stuff like C, but just above the very low level, one of the best is going to be JavaScript and Node.js. So I think proportionally, JavaScript will fill a lot of space in the applications in the future.
seeing that the Nightwatch is somewhat based on the Selenium server, the Selenium API, so this means that it's compatible with the most browsers on the market.
Absolutely. It's actually, the Selenium part is used only to do it's for the grid part of it.
Okay.
Okay? And that's really the job, because Nightwatch could also do directly, I think, with the WebDriver API of each browser.
Okay, because in the enterprise world, sometimes you are asked, you use web and JavaScript in the enterprise world, but sometimes you are asked that you also provide with your web app a custom browser or a headless browser. For example, you won't see BMW people in the warehouse using Firefox or stuff like that, and they have limited capabilities and so on. So when you deliver an enterprise in web, you always have to introduce a new thing in testing called environment integration testing, meaning you need to test your app with the environment that you provide to it, meaning the custom browser and so on. So my question is, does Nightwatch integrate itself with the JavaScript Engine API? This means it would be run in every browser.
Yes, yes. You can inject code, JavaScript. Nightwatch can inject JavaScript code that's going to be run at the browser directly. And what I personally did, and I thought it was amazing, I used Browser Stack, and I run on like 10 different platforms, including mobile, simultaneously. That means I can test Firefox from like version 10 to 34 in one single run.
Yes, thank you. And there is another solution called the Marionette framework.
Okay.
Which does the exact same thing.
Exact same thing. Okay.
Yes. So you could use it even to make call-offs in the browser API, for example. You can say to it, give me all the bookmarks from this user and so on. So it's pretty powerful.
Interesting. I will look for it. Thank you for mentioning it.
Thank you. We have time for one more question.
Hi. You mentioned that it's a good thing. So your main point was that it's a good thing to use the same language for all the layers. Why did you leave out the data part? I mean, leaving aside the debate between NoSQL versus SQL, most of the time, or at least many times, you have a simple data model, so you could choose either way. And at least in my opinion, if you choose a JSON-based NoSQL database, that takes it even further in the integration part.
Absolutely agree. You're absolutely right. I took it a bit away because I really felt you should have the choice of what database you can use. It can be an or run. But obviously, if you're using Mongo or like anything that is JSON compliant and is native, yeah, it's fabulous. You gain even more. I completely agree. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.